There we go. That's better.
Welcome back to Talking Devils with Phill, Marsh and Lee Lawrence, brought to you by talkthedevils.co.uk. I'm your host, Keane. We're here to talk all things Manchester United. We're here to preview Manchester United versus Tottenham. We'll also review the Liverpool game as well. So as always, guys, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell notification below Phill there on the right of Phill. And do get your comments in below with regard to tonight's show. First of all, I'm going to go around table to the lads first. Obviously, haven't seen both of you guys in a week. Firstly, Lee, how you been keeping? How's the form?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Keane. I've obviously just moved out, so I've been preoccupied and been able to sort of take my mind off Man United. So I put a sort of welcome distraction for me in that respect. But yeah, all good. Thanks. Hope you're all right as well, mate.
Yeah, look, I'm good, I suppose. I think as always after a defeat, especially against Liverpool, you feel down the dumps for a couple of days. But no, all's well, all's good. Work went well this week, so just happy to be kind of back on today now, and United back on the screen tomorrow. And look, hopefully we can get 3 points. And congratulations, by the way, on the move as well. I'd say you're absolutely delighted with that at the moment.
Yeah, just obviously still not fully moved out yet, so it's just going to be a sort of slow process until we can sort of get everything moved. But yeah, just glad to get that over the line, and just in time for Christmas, hopefully, for the girls. So
yeah, that'd be lovely. And look, again, I know I moved house a couple of weeks ago myself, and I know the stress of it is it's massive.
Yeah, I won't be moving again anytime soon, I'll tell you that.
100%. And Lee, haven't spoke to you in a week either. How's the form? How you been keeping?
I'm good, mate. I'm good, thank you. I've had a bit of a soak this week, obviously. Like we've just been on about, we've not watched United for a week now, so we've kind of reset. Dreading a little bit of tomorrow in case it's a bit of the same old form. But no, I've had quite a good week, mate, this week. Regarding moving house, mate, I've done it 3 times in the last 5 years. The next time I move house, it'll be the next time when me and the wife get a divorce, I think.
I did not expect that to turn the way it did. Oh my God. But we're here to talk all things Manchester United here today. And obviously, look, if you're a Man United fan this week has been tough for many of us. I think when you look at a game of football, Manchester United versus Liverpool, like what we said in the podcast last week, it's the biggest game in club football, in terms of rivalry, in terms of stature, in terms of the success of the two teams. And obviously, game didn't go away, 5-0 defeat. And I think for many Manchester United fans, it stung. It really did. Obviously, just the manner of the defeat, I suppose the fact that we didn't really put up a fight for 90 minutes, and it was something that, I would say was a shock to the system. But when you look at performances in the last couple of weeks, the performances haven't been there, but we haven't played a good side. We played a good side, and we got put to the sword at home. Phill, I'll come to you first, just on the performance itself. What are your thoughts just on the overall game, in terms of how the defeat kind of panned out and kind of what you took from the game?
Yeah, obviously, really, really disappointing performance. Not really any positives I actually could take from that. I think it was just, as bad a day as it's been in a long, long time. Probably one of the biggest and most sort of humiliating defeats in sort of recent times. I can't think of any other game that's been so poor. In probably, as you just mentioned there, the biggest game of the season for both teams in the respect of the rivalry and obviously what's at stake and the bragging rights. I think the biggest thing that was the sort of standout for me is obviously form and sort of the performances leading up to that. For that particular fixture for me, usually goes out the window. I think, that particular game, if you can't get up for that and you can't be, wanting to sort of perform and sort of, express yourself in such a big game, then, you may as well, pack in, because that's the game you want to be playing in. That's the game you want to do well in. And I think all of our players, didn't really turn up. They didn't do themselves justice in any way, shape or form. I think Liverpool, fair play to them, they was professional. They was very good on day. They sort of dominated the game from the first minute to the last minute, and probably, truth be told, they could have probably scored a couple more goals, and it was sort of 5-0 a canter for me, and that shouldn't be happening, regardless of how Manchester United have been playing in the last couple of weeks. Performance levels have not been great all season, but for me, turning up against Liverpool at home, that kind of result can't happen no matter what team you put out. You've got to fight for every single ball. You've got to, the desire, the will to win, and I didn't see any of that really from any of the players. It was a shocking and sobering moment for me. I think obviously this week's been really difficult. Obviously the manager's been under a lot of pressure, rightly so. Obviously getting beat by your biggest rivals 5-0. And I think it's just a difficult period now for the team, for the manager, and obviously the fans. It's going to be sort of it's going to be difficult no matter what happens. I think some fans, obviously, if we beat Tottenham, I'll still obviously think it's just papering over the cracks. And if we get beat again, it's just hard at the minute. I can't really see a sort of easy fix in the short term, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how things pan out.
Yeah, look, I think when you look at the game itself, it's sobering, the word you used there. I think that's appropriate for the game, especially when you consider, I suppose the manner how we've conceded the goals, how it was so easy for Liverpool to kind of play through our midfield. Our defence didn't look like it had any structure throughout the 90 minutes. It kind of looked like, as it has been the last few weeks, a group of individuals kind of playing on the pitch, and that's the way it was. And there was no cohesion. There was no, I suppose, cohesion in defence or attack. And look, we've seen a team that, in Liverpool who pressed us, and they didn't let us have a breath for 90 minutes. They're a very high intensity team under Jurgen Klopp, and looking the way kind of Mo Salah played, getting a hat trick, he terrorized Shaw Maguire on that kind of right hand channel. He really did. He was on fire. And I think even when you look at the likes of Jordan Henderson and Naby Keita, they got a bit too much space in the midfield. And look, we got punished, and there's no two ways around it. There's no sugarcoating it that we did get punished, but it's just the way that the manner of defeat kind of hurt more than anything, because even if you look at games in the past where we've lost big games, especially in the last kind of 5 or so years, there's always been a bit of fight. There's always been, a bit of determination. But it looked like, from my point of view, looking at the way the players played, they gave up. As soon as Liverpool had scored, it's like they gave up. To me, that's how it looked like from my point of view watching. It felt like they gave up, and for me, that's not what Man United team does, especially in this game. And it's like they gave up and they kind of lost their heads almost, and for me, it was just disheartening losing to Liverpool in that way, and the fact that they're our biggest rivals. And for me, probably effectively rules us out, probably the title race now at this stage, because the amount of games we have now, winning that game would have kept us thereabouts, and for me, I find it hard to see us picking up enough points to catch up with the top 3 at the moment, but all in all, my confidence levels aren't high because of that game and recent performances. But, for me, it's just very disheartening to lose in that manner. And look, I suppose we're looking at a game in Spurs now this weekend where both teams are trying to find their form. Both teams aren't playing their best football. Hopefully it's a case where we can pick the form back up, but time will tell, and we will touch on Spurs kind of later on in the show. But Lee, I'm going to come to you, obviously, with regards to this game. You looked at the way, I suppose, we get a chance to start the game. Bruno Fernandes gets a chance in the first 2-3 minutes of the game, puts it over the bar, and then all of a sudden, within a minute, we concede. When you look at that type of goal we're conceding this season in terms of true midfield, and especially on our left side with Shaw Maguire, are you concerned with kind of, I suppose, the pattern of the fact that we're conceding the same type of goal every week? And do you think it's something that we need to rectify quickly?
Massively, mate. Massively. The defence this season has been an abomination, hasn't it? You know what I mean? It's there's no other words to describe that performance against Liverpool, but awful. You know, it was depressing. I've been sore about it all week. There's no fire in the bellies. They don't look like they want to even try. I don't know what happened. It's, you know, for me it was inevitable. We've done for me we've done amazingly well to get the results what we've got, because there's not many games this season we've played where you can hand on heart as United fans say we've been the best team, we deserve that win. Not many at all, mate. And you know, I don't know what's going on that training field, but the way, you know, the midfield outrun us, the centre forwards can just glide past the defenders. You know, they don't look like they're a solid back four whatsoever. Disjointed. Disheartening. You know, it's not the Man United way. It's just disheartening. You think you'd be training, you know, 5 days a week on the training ground with the calibre of trainers we've got. You think they'd be able to get the back four to some sort of shape, you know, where they're playing for each other. Doesn't look that way. Just get skinned every time someone gets the ball. You're never confident that they're gonna actually defend any set piece or any one-on-ones. You fear every time another team goes forward that you're gonna concede a goal. It's just poor, just poor, mate. And it needs rectifying. It needs rectifying really, really quick, because when you're on about the top four, as they're playing at the minute, mate, they'd be lucky finishing the top half of the season for me. Top half of the league, sorry, if they carry on the way they're going. So it needs sorting. It needs sorting quick.
And do you know, in terms of the way we're conceding the same type of goal, and you touched on kind of our vulnerability in defence this season, especially with Sean Maguire on that side, do you think that defeat, you know, in Wembley in the European final, do you think that's kind of affected them mentally? Because for me, Sean Maguire were England's two best players in the European Championships in terms of consistency. And it almost feels like since they've come back that defeat against Italy in the final, it kind of feels like to me that's at the dent in their confidence. Do you think mentally, from their point of view, that game's kind of maybe denting their current form and their confidence coming into this season?
It could possibly have done, yeah. It is a valid explanation, but for me, you know, the apparently world class defenders, you know, it's you can be upset and you can have a bit of a lack of concentration every once in a while, but for me, it's two really, you know, two of the highest profile defenders in England. They need to step up. Since Maguire's come back from injury, he's looked a shadow of his former self, especially when he was playing for England. Like you say, he made umpteen mistakes. He looks slow. He looks sluggish. It looks like he's going to get beat every one-on-one he's against. Luke Shaw looks like he's playing with a lot less confidence than he was. It doesn't look like he's tacking as much. His defence doesn't look as solid. I just think that, they just need to step up. They're apparently world class footballers, and what everybody makes a mistake. I understand that you're a footballer, you're going to make mistakes, but grab your nuts, as they say, and crack on. Just prove to us why you're worth this kind of money. Why are you playing for Man United? And at the minute, they're just not doing the games they play. They're not showing to me that England's left back, first choice left back for me at the minute he's struggling. And Maguire, I don't know if I play him on. I don't even know if I put him in tomorrow's squad or not with the way he's been playing. So maybe he's still not match fit. I don't know, but they need to improve.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm very concerned about their form, because I at the start of the season I was thinking, because they've had a lack of pre-season, that they would come back. They'd take them a couple of games to get up to speed, and they would pick themselves back up. But it's very concerning that their form hasn't picked back up at all this season, and we're now going into November. I think that's very concerning. I think now Ollie has a very big decision to make in these next kind of couple of games. Does he persevere with them because they're experienced? Because, as you said, on form, they're a couple of best defenders in England. But it is concerning with their run of form at the moment. Can they play their way out of it? And when it looks things right now, no, that would be the answer. But hopefully they can. But I think Solskjaer, as you said, like I think has a massive decision to make tomorrow with regards to the two of them and kind of does he play either one of the two. Phill, I'm going to come to you on this on another player just with regards to this game. He came off the bench and he had I suppose a cameo appearance on Sunday was Paul Pogba. Obviously we're missing him now for 3 games, and it is going to be a tough going without Paul in the team. Like I know he divides opinion, but one thing is he's a very creative footballer, and we're coming up against teams like Tottenham, Atalanta, and Man City in these next 7 days. What would be your solution now? Kind of looking at it now, we hit him out for these next couple of games. Is this a time now where we actually assess it and say, Joe McTominay and Fred, this partnership hasn't worked in this last couple of weeks? Does Donny van de Beek or Nemanja Matic now come into the firing line now and get a chance to maybe show that they can be an alternative in midfield, Joe? Obviously, because of the fact we're minus Paul Pogba at the moment.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's going to be interesting to obviously see what happens in respect of who takes his place. But I want to see a little bit more of Jesse Lingard personally as well. I think he's somebody who, for England, when he's played recently, I've watched him and he looks, really sharp. He's got energy. And I think that's what we're lacking a little bit at the moment in terms of, obviously, Fred and McTominay, they run around and they're quite industrious. But I want somebody who can, break the lines, and I want somebody who can get beyond the strikers, who can create and break the lines. And I think for me, Lingard needs a couple of games now and give him a sort of run in the team, whether that's, change the formation or, whatever that may be. But for me, I think he's somebody who, I feel and I believe can sort of change the sort of dynamic of the team and maybe make us a little bit more threatening going forward on a more consistent basis. As we say, though, Donny van de Beek may get his opportunity now. Obviously, with Paul being out for so long, for 3 games, he might get a little run in the team, and that could be his opportunity to maybe sort of, stamp his authority on that position. And, he's in a probably, win-win situation in the fact that he's not played for so long. So he's probably going to be, somebody who, he's probably not going to be playing with that much pressure, because obviously when you've not played for so long, you sort of not going to be able to come straight into the team and be performing at your best levels. But on the flip side of that, he'll obviously want to come in if he does get the chance and try and, make an impact and sort of do something positive so he can maybe get a little run in the team. Obviously, if not, I think he'll obviously be looking elsewhere, because obviously his games have been limited and he's probably getting, frustrated now with obviously the way things have been going, and he's still not getting a chance. For me, I mean, I'm just trying to put myself in his position. If you can't get a game at the moment at Manchester United, then, there's something not quite right, because none of them players are sort of, a definite selection for me. None of them have done themselves justice, and none of them deserve to be a sort of, nailed on starter. So, yeah, opportunities for some players at the moment, I think.
Yeah, and I think, like, when you look at regards to Van de Beek, I think this is a time for him definitely to make a stamp on it. Like, I think with Pogba being out, we lack that kind of, I suppose, that link from midfield to attack, and I think Van de Beek can offer that alternative, especially in these couple of games. I think, especially Atalanta away, I think with Atalanta's pressing game, you need someone who's going to be press resistant in midfield, who can carry the ball, who can help break the lines with their passing, and Donny can give us that, or Nemanja can give us that in midfield. Obviously, Lingard as well. I think you hit the nail on the head there, Phill. I said this on my own podcast last night, that I think that especially the Spurs game tomorrow will be tailor-made for Jesse tomorrow, like especially the way Spurs play. You look at the way he played for West Ham against Spurs last season, he absolutely tore him apart. Like, I think Lingard's movement, his intelligence around the box, his link up with Cristiano or Marcus or whoever it may be in and around that area will be needed, because I think we've become a bit too predictable in our attacks as of late. And I think you need a kind of dynamic player like Lingard who can be that X factor though in around that 6-yard box. So definitely, I think for me, Jesse does deserve to get a chance this weekend, whether it's from the start or off the bench. I think he deserves a meaningful amount of minutes this weekend, or even next weekend against Man City. I think maybe that game, maybe the time where Ollie may choose him, because it's a game where we're going to need a player who can be intelligent, especially on the counter attack. Because I would expect next weekend we probably won't have much of the ball in midfield, considering the way Manchester City play. I think that may be a game where Ollie may pick Jesse, compared to maybe say tomorrow. He'd suit the both games, but considering the way Ollie sets up in big games, I know last week was probably the first time we played with a press in a big game since his tenure, and look, it didn't work out. So I do see us probably being a bit more pragmatic next week against Man City at home, just because of the way they play in possession. I don't see us pressing that, because I think we get, as we've seen against Liverpool, we'd most likely get pulled apart. But it'll be interesting now to see kind of what he does, because obviously it's a 5-0 loss. And if you look back any time under Sir Alex, when we had a big loss, he'd make wholesale changes. Does Ollie now follow suit and do that? For me, I think that's what he should do. But it just remains to be seen kind of what decisions he's going to make tomorrow, because there is a couple. I think when you look at the defensive situation, you now look in midfield with Pogba being suspended. Does Edison Cavani get a game now? Because you look at the way he played away at Spurs last season, he tore their defence apart, and his movement was key to unlocking Spurs' defence last season. So a lot of decisions to make, but it's going to be interesting to see now in these next couple of weeks what he actually does. Kind of touching on the opposition, Lee. Obviously, Harry Kane is a player who has been out of form this season, and by his standards, he's been someone who's always been like a benchmark in the last kind of 4 or 5 years in the Premier League for a goal scorer in the league, and he's by far probably up there with the best number 9s in world football at the moment. Do you look at Harry Kane now at Tottenham at the moment, and do you think he has that one eye on Manchester City, and that's why his form hasn't been as good this season?
Yeah, he's not at the massive heights as that is it the last couple of seasons, granted, but he's still, I would say, the best striker in the Premier League. I'm worried sick about tomorrow, if I'm being honest. You've got Harry Kane, you've got Son. They've got the potential to tear our defence apart at the moment in time. And yeah, I just hope to God that on that training field this week they've been working on the defence, because like I say, it could be another disaster tomorrow if they don't pull the socks up and get going with it. It's I don't know. I'm struggling this week with United. Like I said to you before we went on the podcast, I'm struggling to think of where they go, what formation, who did they play, who did they swap out, who did they change. I've just been listening to you about Donny van der Beek and Lingard there. If I was Donny van der Beek and Lingard, I would be pulling my hair out. I'd be wanting to leave. I'll be honest with you. Like I say, the performances this year, to say that they've both not really been given, any minutes really, or especially Lingard, because he deserves the minutes. I mean, Donny's, we've not seen enough of him to say whether he deserves the minutes or not. But if I was Jesse, like I say, he's probably one of, if not the main threat going forward from our midfield. And he needs to start. I mean, it's hard because who do you drop? If you put, obviously, they've got a chance now with Pogba, like I say, going out, so one of them can be shoehorned in. But who do you drop to put him in? I think it's going to come down to on the training pitch this week. The lads who train hard, the lads who impress. If it was me, if I was managing the team, my starting 11 would depend very much on who's trained well this week. And if I had to make a big decision on who I was putting in and who I was swapping out, it would be the attitude towards training. And to me, even if it's Fernandes, I mean, Fernandes is fantastic at creating opportunities, but he's been off form again. The 10 things he does try, 1 or 2 come off and it's spectacular and it creates a goal. But for me, these last couple of games, what I've watched, the amount of balls his giveaway has been unreal. Now with Jesse, does he give that amount of balls away? Is it worthwhile swapping them to it and having a look at it that way? It's interesting. But like I said, for me, it's whoever's performed well in training this week, for me, would get a start. And whoever's looked like it's been lacklustre like it was against Liverpool, they'd be dropped to the bench. And that's my opinion on that, Paul.
Yeah, like I think Bruno is a sticky one because, like, I went to the Atlanta game last week before the Liverpool game, and like for the life of me, in the first half, he frustrated me with some of the times he gives away the ball. Like the other couple of occasions he gives away the ball because sometimes the easier pass will be on. But then I watched the second half. I watched the passes he played in that second half, and as you said, his creativity when he's on song is spectacular, and his goal scoring ability as well. Is unbelievable. But I think you're right. Like if you're looking at form at the moment, I think that Jesse Lingard definitely has an argument to start in that number 10 role at the moment, because you look at his performances off the bench this season have been magnificent. He's scored goals, he's helped create chances, he's dynamic. He carries the ball from midfield, whereas when Bruno picks up the ball, he'd look for the pass straight away, the killer ball straight away. Whereas Lingard would help link up the play probably that bit more. I know I mentioned the phrase before about press resistant. Like he deals with the ball very well on the press, and he's very good on the half turn, in terms of popping it inside, then making that bit of movement to receive it back. Like he's very good in that regard. So I think if you're looking at these next couple of games, he does deserve a chance. But for me, if you look at these next few games, if you're just talking strictly Premier League, if you're looking at City and Spurs, I think does Ollie go is tried and trusted with Bruno in there? Like I think he probably does. But even like Lee, we talked off air, like in terms of formations, if he went with a diamond, he could very well put Jesse and Bruno in the same formation. Like we could play the two of them. Like if we did happen to go with the diamond and we did change shape, that is a possibility as well. Like you could play the two of them in the same team. Bruno's the box to box and Jesse's the 10. Like you could do that. There is options there. We do have a big squad. Like I was listening to Ollie's press conference today, and like he talked about he had 30 players training this week, to bar the exception obviously of the injury, only one injury. But like, that's great that you have a full team to choose from. But when you're going through a bad run of form like this, if you have that many players to choose from, changes are going to need to be made. We need some fresh blood in the team, I think, now when you look at these next couple of games. And because if you're playing the same players who are out of form, you're going to get the same type of performance and result. I think a couple of changes still need to be made in certain areas. I do think there's still areas in the team we've done well. I think Lindelof, and he's actually come in these last couple of games, and Varane's injury has actually been okay. I think his distribution from the back has been quite good. I think Harry Maguire is probably the one that's probably left him down in that regard. And the last time we seen Alex Telles play, he scored a brilliant goal against Villarreal, and he was putting in a lot of crosses for Ronaldo in that game. And that's something that we need. Like that's something we need in terms of our fullbacks. We need our fullbacks to be delivering more service into the box for Cristiano, for Mason Greenwood. Like we need our players to be doing that. So we need to see kind of what he does. But while we're actually here,
does that not bring the argument then, like we said off about playing potentially going with a 3-5-2, maybe dropping Luke Shaw at the back in with Varane and one of the other centre backs, and maybe pushing Telles, a little bit further up for the service for Ronaldo. That's one formation I've drawn on paper, and I don't think it might be a bad option. I've watched a few highlights of Telles before we bought him, and his assists and his goals, what he was scoring, was absolutely fantastic. Granted, in a lesser league than he's in now, but he's got that quality to get that ball in that box, which Ronaldo will feed off all day. I'm just wondering whether if he's going to change formation, do we try a 3-5-2 and push Wan-Bissaka wide on the right and push Telles up on the left and drop Luke Shaw in as a third centre back? Could that be an option?
When we played that formation, Luke Shaw has done very well as left-sided centre-back. And we played that away at PSG last year. We won at PSG last season. The other memory sticks in my mind if I was playing 3 at the back, though, is when we played against Chelsea in the FA Cup. I think we do have the players to do it. Now, whether he does implement it now this week, I don't know. It is a good option because you have Tellers who can play at wing back. There's Shaw left centre back, and you can probably play Lindelof and Varane in the back three. And then you could argue maybe Dalot might be even more suited to the wing back role than Wan-Bissaka.
Wan-Bissaka going forward, isn't it? That's where he struggles a little bit with his final ball and his quality at in the top end. So, like I say, would it be worthwhile sticking Dalot there? But the last game I watched Dalot, it was disgusting. I didn't enjoy it.
That was before, though. You see, that was before. If he had maybe Varane or Lindelof covering him on that right channel, he might be okay. If we do play the three, he'd have the extra bit of protection. And maybe put Matic in as one of the sitters in midfield. Then all of a sudden you have a good structure there, to, I suppose, provide that license for the wing backs then too.
Yeah, I was sitting midfielder in there, so obviously if they've gone forward, they've got a defensive midfield player to just to sit back and obviously what we've mentioned 4 or 5 times on the podcast, a good defensive midfield player, which we're going to mention it I think until we get one, because at the minute we don't really have what we need, do we?
We don't, and if you look at the opposition, Højbjerg would be perfect. Like if you look at the opposition, let's say tomorrow, Højbjerg will be perfect in this team. He'd slot straight in. Do you know, like if you're looking at defensive midfielder, he's someone who would be aggressive and provide protection. I think he would be. I
was keen on Declan Rice when everyone was on about buying Declan Rice, but the last couple of games I've watched him play, he's played that role and he's played really, really well there. You know what I mean? I think he could be suited to as a long-term potential investment.
Yeah, definitely. I've said it as well all summer that even though like Declan Rice broke my heart a couple of years ago when he changed his allegiance from Ireland to England, but look, he's a quality footballer, and look, I wouldn't mind him seeing play for us. He'd be a great 6. He'd be brilliant in that position, and he'd be like a Carrick almost in terms of taking that ball from the centre backs, spraying it wide, linking up that play, playing that kind of line break and pass. Rice is very, very good at that. But I'm just going to come to Reese's comment here, and I'm going to come to Phill with this as well, in terms of the 3-5-2. Reese says he has nothing to lose. I'd go for a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. Tellers and Dalot, let's get them to do the attacking duties, and the 3 centre backs would work. Phill, I'm going to come to you on the back of that, and obviously on the back of what Lee said as well. In terms of like playing the 3 at the back, would you be comfortable yourself playing that kind of back 3 this weekend, and though maybe trying something different to kind of, I suppose, get away from the status quo?
Yeah, I mean, as Reese has pointed out there, I think he hasn't got anything to lose in the fact that he just been beat 5-0 at home. So yeah, I think he does have to do maybe something different to make it seem as though he's addressing the problem. But yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. It could be you change the formation, and then does that give the players a bit of an excuse if the result doesn't go our way? And there's all different permutations from changing a formation and off the back of the feet. But for me personally, yeah, I think that would just make us a little bit more solid at the back against two of the probably best strikers in the Premier in terms of Kane and Son. That they complement each other quite well in terms of the pace of Son and dribbling attributes, and then obviously Kane's a potent finisher. He's obviously if not the best striker in the division, so obviously we're going to have to be aware of him and his movements. But yeah, I mean, it's something that I think we do need to address that problem at the back, as Lee touched on. I think the defending over recent weeks has been nothing short of shambolic, and for me, we definitely need to stop conceding so many poor goals. I mean, some of the goals we have conceded have been, absolutely schoolboy stuff, and it shouldn't be happening. At this level of football, the players we've got, the more experienced and the better than what they have shown in the last months. So yeah, whether this is just a short-term fix, or whether we try it and it works well and we can maybe persist with it, we'll just have to see. But as you say, it's just one of them. I think only time will tell.
Yeah, look, I think it's something that it definitely needs to be looked at, and something that I think we've nothing to do, so why not change system? I think that's something that if I know Ollie said a lot has been worked on the training pitch this week, then hopefully that's a change of shape. The current shape isn't working at the moment, and I think we do need to try something different and try get some of our, I suppose, more attacking players into the right positions and provide more service to our forwards, because I think that's something that they've been starved of during these kind of last couple of weeks in terms of creating chances. They've been starved of service, especially for Cristiano. He hasn't been given enough chances up top to get goals. So hopefully that's something that can be rectified these next couple of weeks. But once we're on the topic of Spurs, I'm going to get Lee and Phil's predicted 11s as well, and we're going to do our score predictions. Usually that's at the end of the show, but we're going to do our score predictions right after, because we're going to get Lee and Phil's all-time Manchester United Academy 11s as well. So this should be great. Lee, coming to you first, your starting 11 prediction, or even just what you want to see for tomorrow's game. What do you fancy tomorrow, and what personnel would you like to see?
Okay, like I mentioned, mate, I would personally like to see a 3-5-2 tomorrow. I don't think it's going to happen by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's going to stick with, the two defensive midfield players. I think he's going to stick with that formation. But I've just wrote it down, mate. If you just give me 2 seconds, I would probably like to see De Gea in nets. It's a given. Like we said, Luke Shaw, Varane, and I don't know whether I would stick with Maguire, or I don't know whether I would give Baye a go, to be honest. But I'm going to go, because I know he probably will be able to play himself in form. I'll stick with Maguire. I'd go Telles wide left. I'd go Wan-Bissaka wide right, give him a chance. Obviously, I'll play Fernandes in the middle, but more of an attacking option in the 3. And then I would like, personally, either Donny van der Beek or Lingard, one or the other, to play with rather McTominay or Matic. And up front, I'd put Steele, CR7, Cristiano and Rashford. That would be what I would be looking at, mate.
Not a bad shout. And here, I think Rashford up top with Ronaldo would give us something different, in terms of Ronaldo could be that kind of more target man, and Ronaldo, obviously Rashford can provide that kind of pace in behind, to gives that injection in behind Spurs centre-backs, because Dyer and Romero can be got at for their movement. But
yeah, that's why I put Rashford in with his pace. I think, like I say, Dyer obviously been basically put back and put in for a bit of a makeshift centre defence. I think if he's on form and he can get at him, it's the traditional older guy, strong guy, who then you can hold the ball up, and then Rashford could obviously play off him. I think if we could get Telles or Wan-Bissaka whipping the ball in much earlier than they have been doing, Ronaldo, we know, deadly in the box. I think it could work, mate. I really do think it could work.
Yeah, I think a 3-5-2 could be something that we can go for this weekend. Like, I think that why not? Phil, give me your start 11 formation for tomorrow's game.
To be honest, I pretty much agree with Lee in terms of I would like to see that sort of 3-5-2 in just the respect of, obviously, we need to change something. We've been leaking far too many poor goals, and I think with them two wider players to provide that service for Cristiano, I think that could be potentially something that we sort of could maybe look at. For me, I would stick with probably the same personnel as Lee. I would like to see Matic though in that holding role. I just think he would give us a little bit more control and a little bit more sort of ball retention. And for me, as I said before, I'd love to see Jesse Lingard playing as well in that midfield for the creativity as well. I think he would link up well with Marcus and obviously give us that extra sort of added bit of quality going forward. So for me, I would stick with the same team as Lee, but I'd have Matic in the 6 and I'd be playing Lingard with Bruno, and then Marcus Rashford and Cristiano up top. Yeah,
I actually have the same formation as well, lads, in terms of tomorrow's game. Obviously, I have De Gea in goal. I've Baye out of the 3 though. I'm going with Lindelof, Varane and Luke Shaw in the 3. I've gone with Wan-Bissaka and Telles as wing backs. Matic as a sitter for me with Donny van de Beek is more of the 8, and I'm going with Lingard in the 10. I think Bruno. I think I drop him this week. For me, I think he's my favourite player, but I think Donny van de Beek would be a player I think would be more suitable to this game. I think his link though between obviously midfield and attack and being that kind of player who can kind of play them passes, I think Donny would be useful in that role. And obviously Jesse then, I think his energy in that middle of the park will be useful as well. Like I think that's one thing we do lack, and like he can help press as well. Like because I know when you have Cristiano up there, this is not me going at Cristiano, but he's never been a presser. And even when he was here in 2008 when we won the double, he was never a presser then. So you need players in there who are going to do that pressing and make up for his lack of pressing, because he's going to be that goal scoring presence up there. So I think Jesse Lingard will be that player to kind of help us with that. My front two, I've gone with Cavani and I've gone with Ronaldo up top. Like Cavani's pressing, I think we've all seen it this season when he's come in. He doesn't stop running. He really doesn't. And his movement against Spurs last season, was fantastic. And he pulled Dyer and Sanchez out of position last year quite a lot. And look, people say, can he complete 90 minutes? I don't know up there. But like then you have like Rashford who can come off the bench. Maybe you can bring on Sancho later on in the game to help stretch him as well. Like we do have many options up there. Martial is back as well. But for me, I would go Cavani and Ronaldo. I think their presence up there would strike fear into Spurs. And I think if you're looking at the pressing from the front, Cavani and Lingard can lead that press, and put pressure on Spurs centre-backs. But, look, Rashford can do that same job as Edison up there in terms of pressing from the front and really giving them something to think about. And look, like both of them are clinical, both of them can score goals. But for me, Cavani and Ronaldo, I'd like to see them tried as a 2, because I think they could be devastating and they could develop a partnership. Now, age is only a number. Now, people say they're 34 and 36. Age is only a number, but you can't buy experience and you can't buy intelligence like they have. So, look, I think having the 2 of them up top against Spurs, against them, that particular centre-back pairing, I think it would be the wise to have the 2 of them up there in terms of a partnership. But we should wait and see in terms of what we go with. And look, I think most likely we probably see a 4-2-3-1 tomorrow. But look, it'd be interesting to see. I'm going to go to Reese's comment here, his starting 11, just before we get our score predictions in. Reese says, if we go 3 at the back, I know I gave my prediction last night in our show, but 3 at the back, I would go De Gea, Lindelof, Bailly, Varane, Dalot, Matic, Van de Beek, Telles, Bruno, Ronaldo, Cavani. He's more or less gone the same team I have, with bar the exception of Wan-Bissaka and Lingard. He's gone with Dalot and Bruno in the place of them. Look, you never know. It's very attacking on the wing back side. Would Ollie drop Wan-Bissaka? I don't think so. And he probably doesn't warrant to be dropped. Wan-Bissaka hasn't been too bad in the last couple of games. It's been more the left-hand side that's caused us problems. In terms of score predictions, I'm going to go with you firstly with your score prediction for tomorrow. Give us your prediction, and if you have any scores, who's scoring?
Okay, man. Just to touch on one point, because I was meant to mention it just before I go to my score prediction. And it's just come to my head now. The other thing I would mention about my team, my starting 11, obviously it's just jogged my memory with you, not starting Bruno. And I thought this midweek, the last couple of games I've watched with United, Bruno and Ronaldo, it's great that, they're disappointed if one of the teammates loses the ball, but there's an encouraging way to do it, and then there's a moaning, stroppy, horrible way to do it. And the last couple of games I've watched, I've thought the way with the team at the moment, I feel like it could be having a negative impact. I feel like sometimes they're moaning too much and they're not doing it encouragingly. They're doing it as a get out of jail free card to blame other people. I've been through that with teams, and lads I've played with in the past, and it doesn't help. And that's one point I wanted to get over today. If I was going to drop them, they would be dropped on, their attitude. The attitude, it's great to win, but encourage and try and help out. Don't try to put them down, because if there's lads playing with least, not a lot of confidence, that's gonna damage the confidence even more. So I just wanted to get that point. And if I was going to drop my bigger players, it would be down to the attitude they've showed on the pitch. So I just wanted to get that point in, mate. I thought I needed to mention that this week. Score predictions, hard one, real hard one. I'm never ever going to go for a United lose, because that's a bit too pessimistic. I will go for, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for this, I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory. I said that reluctantly. I'll go for a Marcus Rashford goal. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he starts. And hopefully, I think I predict every week that Cristiano will pop up with an header, or so I'm going to stick with that, mate. I'm going to go for 2-1. I don't think we're definitely not going to be near. I don't think we're strong enough at the back to keep a clean sheet. So I think we're always going to leak a goal or two. So yeah, 2-1. I'll go for this week, mate.
So he's gone with a 2-1, and always he has Cristiano on the score sheet. Phill, any luck with score predictions this week? What thing's going to go down?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, it's going to be, a game that both teams, as you mentioned, not in the best of form, struggling for a result of any sort of, real sort of quality. I think the both teams have not really put a 90-minute performance in all season, where it's been, sort of a complete performance. So for me, I'm actually going to go for a draw. I actually think both teams will sort of be a little bit cagey, not want to concede an early goal. I think it'll be sort of a bit of a chess match. And then, I actually just think it'll be a draw. I'm going to go for 1-1. Just on the point Lee made as well, though, in terms of Bruno and the negativity and sort of, the body language that, him and maybe some of the other players have been showing. I actually picked up on that myself, and obviously thought, again, when things are going really well, it's not as bad. But as he's just mentioned, when things aren't going so good, and as you say, you've got players who are playing very low in confidence, and you've got players who, should be leading by example and, encouraging and trying to drive the team forward. I think that is a massive factor, especially for some of the younger players who haven't maybe got that experience. And, if they've made a couple of mistakes, that can sort of compound it. And, it does sort of, affect you mentally. So I think that was a great point. And it will be interesting to see, obviously, if Bruno does get dropped, how he reacts to that. And, it can go one or two ways when you've been dropped, or if you get took out the team, do you sulk about it and, you think you should be guaranteed to play, or do you, get the bit between your teeth and think, right, I'm going to prove them wrong, and I'm going to make sure that I'm back in the team. I'm going to work hard in training, and I'm going to do everything I can to get my shirt back. So again, it'll be interesting to see. There'll be a few, I think, who'll obviously get pulled out, and it's how you react.
Yeah, definitely. Look, he's been dropped a couple of times for Portugal in the last 12 months, and to be fair, when he's got dropped for Portugal, he showed good reactions and contributed in them games. Hopefully that can translate to us if it's a case where he does get dropped for this particular game, or whether it's Atalanta or City, that he does have a good reaction to it. As you said, it can go one or two ways. Either the player can down tools, the sulk, or they can show a reaction and fight for their shirt, which hopefully is the latter, that he does fight for his shirt, and it's not a case where he downs tools, because that's not one thing. That's one thing I wouldn't like to see in terms of that, because obviously I have a lot of admiration for Bruno. I can see here a couple of score predictions as well. Reese has gone with a 2-2, and he says Varane and Cavani to score for United. And Andrew also says as well 2-1 United, and Maguire and Bruno to score. Just literally on the topic of Bruno, and Andrew reckons we're getting a reaction out of Bruno, and we're going to get a goal from him. I'm going to go 2-1 as well. I do think Kane will score for Tottenham. I do think this is the game, as Lee said, that he'd probably get a reaction, and the fact that, look, he's probably has one eye on the Manchester City move, that though he'd want to score against City's biggest rivals. So think for that note, I think Kane will score for Spurs this week, and I'm going to go with Edison Cavani to get one, either whether he starts or off the bench, and I'm going to go with Jesse Lingard to get on the score sheet as well. He's just a big game player. You look at his United career, looking around the important goals that Jesse scored throughout his United career. I think you look at the way he played against Tottenham last season for West Ham. This game does suit him, and if he does start, I believe he will get on the score sheet, 100%. But enough about current Manchester United in terms of this, because it's always stressful kind of talking about them because we love them so much, and some weeks they play well. I suppose last 2 weeks they haven't, but this now, I'm been buzzing for this part of the podcast because we planned this a couple of weeks ago. In terms of doing this, we're going to get Lee and Phil's Academy 11s from their time playing at the football club at Manchester United. So this should be absolutely deadly to see. We're going to see some gems in here, definitely for sure. And I'm excited to see what their 11s are. And we will get this posted out on Talk of the Devils, on our social media, on our Twitter page, but also we will have it up on our website as well. And also while you're at that as well, at the end of this podcast, do go on talkdevils.co.uk. Do check out our latest piece with Paul Parker. He was recently on the podcast on Monday, and he did give his thoughts on Manchester United, on our form at the moment. Very insightful from former Manchester United right back. So do check that out on www.talkdevils.co.uk as well. But Phil, I'm going to come to you first of all. Obviously, you're in the academy. You've played with a lot of great players throughout your time with Manchester United. Give me your 11 from 1 to 11, and what formation have you got?
So I've gone for a 4-4-2 just based on, obviously, that's the standard formation. We used to sort of play that a lot, and it was really difficult actually to actually pick one player for each position, because when you hear some of the names that I'm going to sort of reel off now, you'll understand why it was so difficult for me to pick a team. So in terms of goalkeepers, the one I picked was Tom Heaton. Obviously, Tom was the keeper that I sort of played with for the majority of the time, in terms of he was the year above me, but I actually played the year above for quite a long period. So he was somebody who I sort of, played with more so than some of the other goalkeepers, but some of the other goalkeepers that I played alongside and, played with as well, like Ben Foster, Luke Steele, Tommy Lee, Ron Robert Zieler, the German keeper, very, very good keepers. But yeah, for me, Tom Heaton was the most consistent. He was obviously one of my closest friends as well. But for me, he was somebody who, you knew what you was going to get off Tom every week. And obviously he's had a fantastic career. And obviously still playing now in the first team. So yeah, Tom Heaton in net for me.
Yeah, Tom had a very good career. Good career. A lot of spells outside the club. You look at his time at Villa, time to Burnley as well. Like, he's had a very good career outside of the football club as well.
Yeah, 100%, and obviously a great lad as well. So, he was my choice in net. Right back, again, another very difficult position for me. There was, 4 or 5 candidates easily that could have slotted into this position. Danny Simpson, obviously, won the Prem with Leicester. He's somebody who I played with sort of from when I first signed at the age of 11, all the way through to 21 when I left. But also the players who I played alongside who was, top class was Phill Picking, Phil Bardsley and Raphael. All, unbelievable right backs in their own sort of right. But I actually just went for Danny Simpson just because I played with him a lot more. And obviously he's, somebody who sort of battled adversity, when he got to 16, was going to get released, wasn't quite filled out enough, and Tony Whelan, the academy coach, gave him a chance. He went down to the age group below. He developed physically, and then, he kicked on and proven, he's had a fantastic career, and obviously still in touch with Danny to this present day. So he's the person who I picked as in that position. although the other lads again was top draw. Now these two centre halves was probably the most difficult choice for me. I'm going to name 4 centre backs. I mean, I had a list of about 9 or 10. But these 4 are the ones that I narrowed it down to. So I had Johnny Evans, I had Gerard Piqué, I had Paul McShane, and Ryan Shawcross. So for me, the 4 centre halves who I obviously spent a lot of time with during the academy, and obviously when I signed full time, them 4 was unbelievable. And to pick 2 out of them 4 is nigh on impossible, because all 4 of them have been, fantastic players. They've all had great careers. I'm friends with all 4 of them. But for me, obviously, just based on the career that Gerard Piqué went on to have, I've put him in as a centre half, because obviously, I think he learned his trade in England. He struggled a little bit with the sort of physical side of the game. But when he went over to Spain, I think he adapted. And, when you're playing in Barcelona's first team, you can't not sort of be, a good player. I think he was always fantastically gifted technically. He could drive out of the back 4, and his passing range was phenomenal. And I think he obviously benefited from that side of the things when he went over to Spain. So for me, I had him and Johnny Evans, just because obviously Johnny was another one who, in the academy at that moment in time, he may not have been, one of the more sort of standout players, but he's had a fantastic career, and he's probably gone under the radar a little bit. I think he's, been one of the Premier League's best centre-backs for a long time, and, he's still doing it now with Leicester. He got linked with Man City. He's had, a couple of other big teams that was in for him, and for me, he's a great lad, and for me, he just sort of pipped Paul McShane, because obviously I'm really good friends with Macca, and somebody who I still speak to today. And obviously, if you want a centre half who's going to, put his body on the line and all that kind of stuff, he would be your perfect example of that. So that was my Centerbacks Partnership. So it was Piqué and Johnny Evans, the 2 centre backs there.
And just before we get to your left back, Phill, I just want to ask, just since you actually touched on Johnny Evans there, do you think when Louis van Gaal sold him in 2015 that we sold him a bit too early, considering the centre-back options we did have?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a difficult one, because in hindsight, you look at him and you think, at that moment in time, was he as good as what he was maybe a couple of years later? And you probably think no. So, if we would have persisted with him and kept him, then, he could have turned into, probably one of our first choice centre-halves, and he wouldn't have had to spend, all that money on other players coming into that position. So, yeah, it is a difficult one. Sometimes you look at a player and you think he's not quite playing regularly, and, do you want to move him on? But as you say, I think he's one that got away. I think he would have been a great addition to the squad. And he's proven, he's worth in gold. I think he's, everywhere he's gone, he's been a very solid and consistent performer.
Yeah, 100%, and definitely someone who was, I said the one that got away. I think that's definitely a phrase we could use for him, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. So left back, obviously Lee was maybe a little bit older. I didn't want to. Obviously, Lee was a fantastic left back. I did play quite a few games with Lee, and for me, technically and in terms of getting forward and all that kind of stuff, Lee was probably the best at that I played with. Just because I was a few years younger than Lee, I haven't actually put him in my team. Just because I didn't play probably enough with Lee to sort of warrant me putting him in his team. But I just wanted to obviously point out that he was definitely worthy of being in my team. So the other 2 potential candidates I was sort of flipping in between was Adam Eckersley. I played with X sort of a little bit more than I did with Lee. He was another great left back, liked to get forward. He was aggressive, and somebody who I always enjoyed. If I did play out wide, sometimes I enjoyed playing with him, because he was somebody who he'd get round you, he'd get back, he was fit, And as I said, he was very aggressive. Sometimes he'd give you, a bit of verbals, as we've just touched on there. Sometimes you get that, bit of negativity, and he had a bit of a moan in his locker sometimes, which, some players do. But, overall, a great player. And the other one was Danny Rose, not the Danny Rose from Tottenham. This was a lad who he was a midfielder predominantly, but he got put because he was left-footed. He was very good technically. He got put into a left-back slot and sort of took to it really well. And Rosie was one of them players where he would do anything for the team. His attitude was exemplary. He led by example for such a little lad as well. He couldn't half put a tackle in, and for me, he was somebody who I actually thought, even though he was a year younger than me, I sort of had massive respect for Danny, and he's obviously gone on to have a great career. I think he's played for Portsmouth. He's still playing in the Football League now. So yeah, fair play to him, and he was somebody who I definitely considered, but I actually did pick Adam Eckersley just because I had more sort of run-ins and sort of games with X. But yeah, Lee, you definitely would have been in there. It was just obviously the fact that I didn't quite play enough with you, even though I did make my reserve team debut when you played. So yeah,
it's all right, Phill. I know what your loyalties lie, mate.
Yeah, it was nothing personal. I mean, it was nothing personal. I mean, I could have quite easily put you in there, but as I say, you've probably played with other, strikers and stuff that, like Pooley and people like that more than me. So,
no, mate, you was my number one striker, mate.
Well, yeah, I thought I would have been. But no, so that's it. Yeah, so I've gone for Adam Eckersley left back. Okay, and then going into my midfield, on the right-hand side of the midfield, I only sort of had one player for this position just because for me, well, there was two, but this lad was probably the most standout because when I sort of seen him for the first time, I thought, wow, he's a top player, and that's Chris Eagles. He was, technically probably one of the best players I'd seen in sort of terms of the academy. He was unbelievable, both feet, his passing range, he could score, he could assist, and he was quite athletic. He sort of was a bit of a slim and sort of lanky type of player, but he was a fantastic player. The other option I thought of was Jamie Mullen. He was somebody who was a year younger than me, but unbelievably tricky. He could, move the ball left and right. He's actually playing in Wales now for TNS, and he's a great player. Somebody who's got bags of tricks. He's fast, but I just think Chris Eagles was somebody who especially with the career he's had as well. He's played in the Prem a few times. He went to Bolton and. He did well there, and obviously, still speak to Chris. So he's the player I picked on the right hand side.
His goal against Everton in 2007 against thumping.
Just opened his body up and just found that bottom corner. And obviously, for such a young lad to show that kind of maturity on that stage, again, that's the kind of quality I was talking about. Midfield, another tough one for me. Obviously, my best friend, who I sort of went through every age group, was Richie Jones. I stayed in digs with Richie. He was somebody who took to me straight away when I first signed and sort of made me feel welcome. But what a player he was. He had a bit of everything. He could play, he could mix it up. He loved to tackle, and for me, he was somebody who I sort of, took to straight away just because I thought, wow, he's a great lad. He's a great player. He wanted to be my friend. And, for me, he made my time at United sort of a lot more enjoyable, especially in the earlier stages when you're trying to settle in. So Richie was somebody who I sort of put in my team just because I think, he was somebody who I always looked up to and sort of shared a lot of good experiences with. And then the other three that I sort of shortlisted was Darren Gibson. Another, top player. He's had a fantastic career. Although he's had a few, bad moments and sort of negative press for one thing or another. Technically, fantastic, unbelievable strike. I remember seeing him at a few balls and think, wow, like unbelievable. He could couldn't half hit a ball. Tom Cleverley was another one. He was a little bit younger, but I played with Tom. At that moment in time, maybe wasn't quite developed, a little bit like Danny Simpson, so didn't quite, sort of play as many games as he might have liked, but again, shown that, grit and determination to sort of get through that, and obviously had a fantastic career. And then David Jones as well, another one. At that moment in time, he was, probably a regular in the reserves, and somebody who I used to always enjoy playing with. He could pick a pass. He was clever with his runs, and sort of, another quiet lad, but on the pitch, he let his football sort of do the talking. He was a great player. But in terms of picking two, I went for Darren Gibson and Richie Jones in the middle of my midfield.
So you went with Jones and Gibson in the two, so Cleverley misses out.
Yeah, Cleverley just misses out again, just because at that moment in time, I don't think Tom was quite what the player he's gone on to be. I think he was, in terms of he hadn't filled out, he was maybe struggling a little bit in terms of, confidence and other little things. And the other lads obviously were, flying both, in the peak, if you like.
On the left of your left side.
Yeah, on the left, again, I put two down. Again, I had Kieran Richardson, who, Lee, I'm sure Lee will probably have Kieran in his team. He was somebody who I played with, not probably as much as the other lad who I've picked, but, what a player he was. At that moment in time, I think he was sort of, the hottest prospect, if you like, that was potentially going to be breaking into the first team. He was quick. He had a, eye for goal. And obviously, he had all the sort of stuff that you'd want as a winger. But yeah, he was somebody who, again, I didn't quite play enough with to maybe put him in my starting, but obviously did play with him to sort of recognise the talent. But I went for Lee Martin. Lee was somebody who came in as I first signed in my first year, sort of YT. And again, he reminded me of Chris Eagles in the fact that he was good off both sides, good off both feet, could beat a man, very tricky, comfortable on the ball, had a great sort of delivery and just made the crosses look simple. And again, somebody who I got on quite well with, and somebody who, was one of my closest friends, and he's again gone on to have a fantastic career. So yeah, Lee Martin comes in for me on the left-hand side.
So you've Martin on the left, so you've gone with a 4-4-2.
Yeah,
so
4-4-2,
you have many options up front.
Yeah, well, I've shortlisted 4. I've not included myself. Obviously, you can't have yourself. Although it was difficult to leave myself out, really, because Lee will tell you. No, yeah, the two I've gone for are probably the two that I had the most sort of time playing with, and the other two I played a lot with and recognised the talent, and they've gone on to have really good careers, but maybe just didn't quite play enough with them to warrant them being in my team. So the two lads that I did play with, but not quite enough, was Danny Welbeck. I mean, Danny Welbeck was somebody who, at that age was technically unbelievable. He was still developing physically, along with some of the other lads, but you could see that potential. You could see that the talent was there. But again, just maybe didn't play enough with him to sort of warrant him being in my team. But again, what a career he's had, a lot of bad injuries and stuff that maybe held him back to really maybe reach the highest of his possibilities. But for me, he was a great player. And Sylvan Ebanks-Blake was another one. Sylvan was probably one of the strongest players I'd ever seen at academy level and sort of youth team level. He absolutely built like an ox and used to back into defenders and roll them for fun because of how physically strong he was, and he was a great goal scorer, top lad. But yeah, he sort of just missed out above the other two that I picked, just based on obviously playing with them more and just thinking, for me, obviously the just maybe a little bit more of an X factor. So Giuseppe Rossi was a definite for me.
Oh yeah,
Rossi was somebody who came in, and I think I remember seeing him and thinking, wow, he's only small. He's gonna have to have some unbelievable talent to sort of come and mix it with some of these lads that we was playing against. But yeah, he definitely exceeded my expectations. I think in terms of technical ability and being able to manipulate a football the way he did was exceptional. I actually loved playing with him because his vision, his way to pass, and his finishing was something to just be so sort of excited about. I mean, he was a breath of fresh air. He was one of the best I've seen at that level, and obviously went on to have a great career. Played for Italy, international level, Villarreal. He's at Fiorentina. He's been about, and what a career. And then the other lad was Fraser Campbell. Fraser, another one who I played quite a lot with. Pace, aggression in the right way. A nightmare to play against for defenders, I can imagine, back then, because he was always on the shoulder. He'd be dropping in, he'd be working hard, he'd be pressing, he could finish. And for me, he was somebody who I enjoyed playing with quite a lot because we had a great understanding. Didn't really have to work on too much. It just flowed naturally. And again, he was somebody who's gone on to have a really good career, prolific in the Championship for quite a few years with Hull. And yeah, I think them two up front would cause absolute mayhem against any team, really. So yeah, that'd be my team.
A lot of pace there up front, with Rossi and Campbell up there up front, especially Danny Welbeck as well in around that team. If you had put him there as well,
yeah,
again, someone who'd definitely give you a lot. But I'm going to come to Reese's comment just before we get to Lee's 11. Reese says, Ebanks Blake was a machine for Wolves. One of the players I'm gutted didn't work. I actually wonder what yourself and Ebanks would like a first team with Lee whipping crosses in. Just on that, going to bring Lee into that there as well. What do you reckon, Lee? Phill, Ebanks Blake off front.
Down the line, that probably happened, if I'm being honest. That probably did happen in the reserve game somewhere down the line. What do you reckon, Phill?
Yeah, it would have happened. That, yeah. That would have been. Yeah, I think that would have happened at some point. It was just obviously difficult because there was that many, good players around that time. I mean, I'm interested to sort of see some of the names that you've got in your team, because obviously when I was thinking of mine, there was a lot of lads there who have probably not even mentioned.
To be honest, I've got a lot of the same. I'm always thinking a lot of the same than you, which I'll show you in a minute. Obviously, with me being them couple of years older than you, I probably played with players that you didn't get the opportunity to play with. You know what I mean? And vice versa. I did play with Welbeck because obviously he was younger.
Yeah.
Tom Cleverley was a little too young for me to play with.
Danny Drinkwater's another one there.
I didn't play with him. I can't think of the little black kid. He was absolutely amazing growing up. He was about maybe a little younger than you. Fabian Brandy, another. Another one. But he was supposed to have been absolutely immense, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he's somebody who I didn't even think of. But yeah, what a player he was as well.
Yeah.
I mean, for such a small lad, he was
strong as an up. I
think
he trained with us once or twice, and the pace and the strength he showed. And I mean, he's a good 4 or 5 years younger than me. And he come up and trained with us. I think at like under 19 level. And he was phenomenal for his age, you know what I mean? And I would have thought he would have been the next big thing at United.
Definitely.
And Lee, in terms of your 11, with regards to it, give me your starting 11, 1 to 11, and let us know what formation you've gone with as well.
Yeah, Keane. I've basically done two teams. I'll try and run through them as quick as I can with you. What I've done, I've probably done an 11 which has been, probably the most successful out of the 11 I could have chose. And I've also done a team of probably a lot of players what you wouldn't have heard of, but they showed, the potential they showed growing up through the years was unreal, and they probably at that time was better than the players what I've chosen in my first 11. So I've done two. I'll try and rush through them as quick as I can if that's okay, mate.
Yeah.
So my keeper, I played with quite a good few keepers. This guy isn't in either of my teams, and I've only just thought of him and remembered him while we've been on this podcast. So I thought I'd better give him a mention because he got released off United very, very early on his career. I think he was only about 13, 14. But he's ended up having a fantastic career, and he's only just come to me. It's like Kieran Westwood. I think he's the Irish goalkeeper or the Northern Irish goalkeeper. I can't think.
Yeah, it's Republic of Ireland keeper. Yeah.
Yeah. He was. I don't know. He's gone on to have a fantastic career, and I just thought he deserved a mention because I've only literally just thought of him. But the my
Sheffield Wednesday. Is he the Sheffield Wednesday?
Yeah, he's had a phenomenal. I mean, he got released when we was young, maybe 12, 13, no later than 14, and then I didn't hear nothing from him. Then all of a sudden he was playing for, I think it was Ireland, and playing in the
Sunderland as well.
Yeah. Northern Ireland, is it Keane?
Yeah, he's playing for the Republic of Ireland. He made a few appearances with us, and then he went on to play with Sunderland as well. He had a good career at Sunderland.
Yeah, he's had an amazing career, and he's just flicked up. So I just thought he deserved a mention. But yeah, basically I've gone with the same keeper as Phill. Probably gone Tom Heaton. I played a hell of a lot with Tom. He's gone on to achieve so many things in his career. A lovely lad, Chester lad, I think he was. Lovely lad, nice personality, great attitude towards the game, and look, back at United where he belongs. The team where he learned his trade. More power to him. I'm absolutely made up to see him back. So that's my keeper. Very similar back four to Phill, actually. I've gone, I think, with Danny Simpson because, again, Danny was a couple of years younger than me, but it was another decision because, like I say, he's won the Prem. But I've gone with a lad who I've grown up with from being 8-year-old until obviously I finished at 21. Very good friend at the time. Local lad, Salford lad, Phill Bardsley. He literally lived on Littleton Road. His dad owned a pub called the Kersal Club, which was actually on the training field. Him and his family lived and breathed Man United. At 16, it was touch and go whether he was going to get a contract or not. I think when the rest of us was enjoying, 1 year YTS contracts and 2 and 3 year pros, I think he, literally got 1 year YTS to try and prove himself. But he come back and absolutely did prove himself. Look at the career he's had. He's still playing Premier League football now, if I'm not mistaken. Great lad. Don't think he's ever let pain go to his head. And, fantastic. He made an absolutely fantastic fullback in his career. Played international football for Scotland, although I'm not quite sure whereabouts he's got that one from, but he made up for Phill. He's had a great career.
I reckon Sir Alex definitely had something to do with that.
Sir Alex is running in the office, definitely.
I played England schoolboys with him, so at one point he has played for England schoolboys.
Yeah. Sir Alex has had the family tree out there, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely had the family tree out, mate. But yeah. Amazing career. Absolutely made up for the guy. Deserved it.
Lee, just on Bardo. I mean, I remember what a specimen he was, mate, in the gym. I remember him. He used to. I mean, I obviously was a couple of years younger than Bardo, but I actually just remember going in the gym this one particular day, and he was doing some weights, and he had a vest on, and then he took his vest off. I don't think he was taking it off to show off or anything, but honestly, mate, how hench was Phill Bardsley?
Well, if you just take you back to when I said at 16, it wasn't. I think he'll tell you himself. I don't think he was expected to get a contract at 16. I think he thought he was going to get released. He was very lightweight, Phill, believe it or not, Phill. Growing up 13, 14, 15, very lightweight. Like myself, I was always a little lightweight, growing up. But Phill was probably a little more lightweight than me. And he went away after he got his year's YTS when he was 16. And I don't know what he did that pre-season, mate, but he come back hench. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was hench.
Mate.
It must have worked. That's what I mean.
He must have been sleeping with dumbbells.
Yeah, to get where he went. And like I say, from then he just kicked on. You know what I mean? And he deserves it because from, probably looking like he weren't going to get a contract and quite easily, yourself when you're 16, the amount of lads what you've seen, they don't get the YTS and they don't get the professional and they fall by the wayside and, they take the heart and they don't play football again. So, like I say, more power to him for doing what he's doing. And, we've not only made millions, but had a fantastic career, you know what I mean? So, fair play to him for doing that. So, yeah, I've gone for Phill as my right back, mate.
And your centre-back pairing?
Yeah, my centre-back pairing, there's no surprise here. Phil's already mentioned you can't play with Gerrard Piqué and not put him in your starting 11 as a centre-back. I had a couple of years with Gerrard. I remember him first coming to the club. And to be honest, I didn't think he was much cop. If I'm being completely honest with you, I thought that he was an overrated lad from Barcelona who's got over just because, he's come from a fantastic club. But over, a matter of months, he adapted to the English game. I still didn't think when he left United that he was going to go on to have the career that he actually has. He's probably been one of Barcelona's best centre-backs for an age now. And again, he's a lad I'm absolutely made up for. So yeah, he's probably the most successful out of anyone I've played with or grown up with or had the pleasure to share a pitch with. So he's one of my centre backs.
His Instagram profile is one of the best things ever as well. If you ever had to go on and have a look at his Instagram profile, it's just absolutely nuts.
I mean, you've got to give him praise, haven't you, for marrying Shakira too? Let's be honest, well done, son. He's done really well.
And Reese says the best Gerrard to play in English football. I like that one, Reese.
So again, centre back wise, it was an hard decision. I've not picked Maka on paper, and I'm wondering now whether I should or not. I'm still undecided. It's Johnny Evans or Paul McShane. I think I'll change it. I think while you went Johnny, I think I'll change it up and I'll go Paul. Played a lot with Paul. Played more football with Paul than Johnny because Johnny was, again, I think he's a couple of years younger than me, Johnny Evans.
Yeah, Johnny was younger than me, so.
Yeah. I did play a little bit with him, but not as much as I played with Paul. Paul is everything I like in a centre-back. Everything I like in a centre-back is a Vidic, is a Stam, is that kind of no-nonsense. Put your foot in, get the job done, defend first, everything else comes second. Centre-back, he must have been horrible. You probably played against him, Phill, in training. He must have been horrible.
Yeah, horrible. As you just mentioned, you don't want to play against someone like that because, he's one of them who will put a foot in. He won't leave you alone. He's horrible in the respects. He's pulling, pushing, everything just to try and put you off your game. And
listen, when I knew he was on that team sheet and he was playing at the side of me, mate, I was over the moon. I knew that I had a lad there who'd give 110% for the cause. I know if I lost the ball, he'd be covering round. He knew if he lost the ball, vice versa, I'd be covering around.
Yeah.
And that's the type of way we grew up at United. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, as a back four, you was like your own little team. I know you've got you've got your full 11, but we always got taught that back four was solid. Like I said, we always played 4-4-2, and we always got taught, that was your family, that's what you looked after. And I knew if Maka were playing, he'd be looking after everybody in that back four. So yeah, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go with Paul McShane.
That's a solid back three at the minute you're given there, and obviously like you Paul McShane and PK. Like I know from watching Paul McShane in his days with Ireland, like he was a no nonsense defender, and like you have PK, the Rolls Royce beside him, then you have the Paul McShane who be no nonsense. I think you have a good blend there in terms of like partnership and kind of balance there.
Yeah, brilliant, mate, brilliant. Now left back wise, I've actually got down again on paper, but I'm changing my name. I've actually got down Adam Eckersley. I was very close with Adam. I know it sounds a bit silly that because me and Adam were for years was who was getting into hopefully the first team in the same position. Adam was a year younger than me. I could drive a lot sooner than Adam, and we formed an unlikely friendship. I used to pick Adam up from his house a lot. take him to training, take him home. You know, we struck up a very nice and lively friendship, and I think we spurred each other on to get the best out of each other, which we could. And he was, like Phill said, he was an absolutely fantastic left back. Ferocious going forward, strong, good tackler, local boys. We found that all the local boys were, we felt like we had something to prove at United when they used to bring, either the foreign lads in or what we used to call the out-of-town players who they brought in for some money. We always felt like, we had a point to prove. So we always looked like we give that little bit extra in training, maybe left that foot in a tackle a bit more to get recognised. So, yeah, I did have Adam Eckersley down. But if I'm going to go off career-wise, he's probably had the better career. And it's probably someone you've not played with, Phill, because he was a little older than me. I'd probably have to go with Danny Pugh. I think he was lingering in and around the first team for quite a while. And then did he go on to Leeds, I think, after the first team. Had a good few seasons there. I think he's still playing up to this season. He's had a real long. I think he went to Stoke too. Had a good few years at Stoke. He's had a real long, glittering career. Really, he's done really well at left back. I can't really think of any other left backs really. What from my era, what actually went on to establish himself in the first team, apart from Danny having a good run. So really, I cocked up because I should have been in there.
Yeah. What did Lynchy? Do you remember that Lynchy?
He was more right back when he met.
Was he a right back? Yeah,
he was more right back.
I just remember him being a full back, but I couldn't remember if he was a right back or a left back.
The right back. We had to. You mentioned Phill Picking, absolutely fantastic. Right back. The right backs. There was Raphael. I never played with any of the Silver brothers again. I think I must have left before they come. I think I left in 2004, 5. I think they might have just turned up.
They come that year, yeah. So.
Yeah, but there's been some fantastic right backs, haven't there? But I just going off success out of their career at a left back, I'll go with Danny Pugh. So that'd be Tom Heaton in nets, Phil Bursley right back, Gerard Piqué, Paul McShane centre backs, Danny Pugh left back. On the right hand side, again, Chris Eagles. What a shout! What a player! I remember Chris coming again. I think he joined straight into my age group, but he was a year younger than me. The only thing what let him down a little bit, I think Phill mentioned, he was lightweight at the time, very lightweight. He got pushed off the ball, but when he had the ball at his feet, you couldn't take the ball off him, could you, Phill? If you remember,
very, very good player.
The skill and the ability to dodge a tackle or ride a tackle, should I say? Sorry, and carry on and. The right foot, he had a great right foot. It probably reminded a lot of players of David Beckham when he was raw and he first come onto the scene. I think he got compared to that quite a lot. Yeah. Potentially, he had fantastic potential. And again, he's made a good career out of the game. But there's a guy who stands out for me. I lived with him for over 2 years. Probably the most cocky footballer I've ever come across in my life. But absolutely amazing. Bojan Djordjic. Fantastic. Bo was amazing. I remember the goal he scored against Celtic. I was living with him at the time, and just magic player, Bojan. He weren't the quickest on the right, but the skill and the game management, what he could do, he was a great player. And again, he's played in I don't know how many countries at top level football. He does a lot with MUTV now, I believe. And yeah, I lived with a guy for a while. I had a great relationship with him in the digs at Cecil Avenue. So I put Bojan there on the right. Midfield was quite easy for me, actually. I lived next door but wanted Darren Fletcher for many years. The career he had at Man United is second to none. I remember Darren coming as a young lad. He had this reputation when he come. I think he was about 13, 14 when Darren come, and Darren was a year older than me at the time. And he had a reputation what preceded him really. And I remember him showing glimpses of what a player he could be, and then he'd get injured, come back on the training field, get injured again. And I remember him having to have bolts actually put in his foot at some point because of the injuries he was having. And at one point, it didn't look like it was going to get over them. Now all of a sudden, started performing in the reserves and ended up, in the first team. And the story speaks for itself with Darren Fletcher. He was an amazing midfielder for the club who give, so many years of hard work and graft towards the team. And again, he's a lad I'm absolutely made up back involved with a club like Macca. And I think these are the lads, who understand the way Man United and understand the philosophies. And they're the type of lads what are needed in and around the club to get the club back where it needs to be. So, yeah, Darren Fletcher was a no-brainer for me. And I've also... Did you go with David Jones, Phill?
No, I went for Richie. I mean, David
Richie,
Jones was your age when he saw a little bit older, but great player.
He kept breaking up, and at the end, I just heard Jones. Well, I've gone different, mate. I've gone David Jones. I don't think I've met a guy in centre midfield that had the football brain of David Jones. His brain was absolutely phenomenal. He knew he could scan a field and know before that ball came to him where he was going to pass that ball. 2 or 3 passes before it came. He played on my side. He played on the left-hand side of midfield. And he was always available. Every time I had the ball, he was available. I knew, if I was in there, all I had to do was look up in the back and he'd be there wanting the ball, always on the side, turn, always looking over his shoulder, never give the ball away. Fantastic, mate. So I can't think of any other team midfield players I've played with in my time, which are, over a long period of time, which are any better than them two. So they'd be my 2 central midfield players. You did call it, mate, on the left, Kieran Richardson. I had to pick Kieran, for since I think it was about under 14s, I was at left back, he was left wing. He kind of had, there was him and Ben Collett, if you remember Ben.
Yeah.
I'll touch on in my second team, on the other team, because Ben's in the second team what I've picked. So I'll touch on him in a bit. But yeah, for sheer talent, Kieran Richardson was the benchmark when we was growing up. That's who everyone wanted to be at that time when we all wanted to be Kieran, because Kieran was the big name. Kieran was the guy what was getting his chance going training with the first team when we was under 19s. He was the guy what was going to the European matches, and fair play to him at that time. It was head and shoulders above us all. So rightly so, he deserves his place on my left wing.
And with regards to that's a stacked midfield you have there, like in terms that with your front two, with the amount of players you played with, I'd say it's been a tough choice.
Very tough choice, mate. Very tough choice. But again, like I said, this team, what I've gone with success really rather than potential. It's just what happened. See, so who's that? Reeves. He's jumping in on my second team already. This guy.
Do you know what? I was literally just going to say to you.
On my second team.
What about Mad Tim? So
basically, I've got Giuseppe Rossi. Phill, you hit the nail on the head, didn't you, with Giuseppe?
Yeah,
you can't leave Giuseppe out. I mean, I think it was Villarreal, wasn't it? Look at what he did there. I cannot believe he did not make it as a striker at United. He was nailed on for me.
I think any other time period that he was at the club, he would have. I think it was just because at the moment in time that we was all there, the team was just like sort of infested with that much quality. It was like literally impossible. Rooney, Ronaldo, Tevez, Berbatov, Zaha, all these types of players. How are you going to get in front of any of them? It was.
I was devastated for the lad, Phill. When he got released, I was absolutely devastated because it was such a nice lad. If you remember too, he was a real nice lad.
Top lad, yeah.
And you used to watch him train, and some of the stuff he could do with a ball. It reminds me very much of Veron. When you used to watch Veron train, and you used to think, "Wow, how's he done that?" You used to do the same with Giuseppe, and some of the goals he used to put in training, and even in the reserves, and it'd pop up, get the ball, from nothing, put it in the top corner from 30, 40 yards out. It was magical. So I had to put Giuseppe in. And my second striker, mate, is you've already mentioned him. I think it's because I played quite a lot with him too myself. It was Silvan. Silvan was probably, like you said, the strongest centre forward I've ever seen. The ability he had to actually back into a player and roll a player. It reminds me very much of, I don't know if you'll know him, Keane. There was a guy growing up who I played with called Jamal Johnson. You'll know him, Jamal, won't you?
Yeah, Jamal, yeah.
And he had that natural ability to, get touch a player, put his back into him, and just naturally roll him and spin him, and he was away. Jamal had a great career. I think after he left United, I think he went over to America. I was quite in touch with him via Facebook, quite a lot a couple of years ago. Kind of lost contact with him now. But following his career, I think he had, did really well down there in America. But yeah, Sylvan, I think I've just got a little stat down here. Obviously, he didn't really hit it at United, but when he left and then he ended up at Wolves, he played 177 appearances, 61 goals. Club legend for them, you know what I mean? Them seasons he had there, did really well. And we'll probably want to, again, with Giuseppe and with Sylvan, they're probably most successful strikers who I played with in my era. So that is my successful 11.
And in terms of the other 11 of the unknown players,
yeah,
this is the one I wanted to see because obviously the hidden gems that are in there.
I'll try to go through this quickly, Keane, because I know obviously we've been on quite a while now. So there's a guy called Luke Steele. I don't know if you remember Luke Steele or not. I actually spoke to Luke yesterday about something or another. He was an absolute fantastic goalkeeper, Luke. Went on, I think, to become Panathinaikos' first choice goalkeeper a couple of seasons ago. Didn't really do much at United, but raw talent. But absolutely, I remember him coming in. He's not a local boy. I know he's from. I think he's down South, Herefordshire or somewhere like that. Phil, can you remember?
I think Peterborough, ain't he?
Down that way, anyway.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know whether he was first choice growing up, above Tom. I think he was. I think Luke actually when I was leaving was in there before Tom Heaton. So it showed the pedigree he had and what a goalkeeper he was. Right back, there's a guy. What a guy this guy was. One of the biggest characters you'll ever meet, Lee Sims. Played with England with Lee for years. Absolutely fantastic right back, mate. Fantastic. He fell out the game probably the same time as I fell out the game. I'm not sure why Lee did. Obviously, I fell out the game through injury. I'm not sure what happened to Lee, whether he just lost his way. I actually think he's a painter now, to be honest with you. But I'm just trying to get him back involved with the club a little because I think Lee deserves it. He gave so many years of hard work and dedication to it, and I think he does deserve a bit of recognition off the club because he was an absolutely phenomenal right back, and no one could take his place at right back, Phil, could they?
No, he was a great player. I used to hate him, and he was somebody. I mean, as you say, what a character. Proper. In the dressing room and all that kind of stuff. He was great to have around the place just as a character. But again, he's right there about the recognition. He was a great player.
When you were talking about Birdo too, being a big lad, Lee was a big lad. He looked like a waiter.
Yeah,
he was a big lad. You know what I mean? So he would have been at right back, mate. There was a lad called Chris Taylor, Brummie. Remember Brummie?
Yeah.
He was England's captain for years growing up throughout the levels. I always remember playing with, it was them two, him and Glenn Johnson were the centre-back pairing at the time. I think for our under-16s England squad. And he was the captain, mate. He was phenomenal. Chris Taylor was an absolute phenomenal centre-half. Probably the best centre-half I've seen growing up. Again, you would have thought he would have made, the best career because he was that good. I know he did go on to play for... I know it's a West Midlands team, I think. I can't think which one it were. But it went down to the lower leagues anyway. But yeah, he could have quite easily have been up the Premier League easily. So Chris would have been another centre-back. And then a lad you'll know well, Phill, Mark Howard, local Salford lad. Yeah. Had a great career, I think, over in America again. He lives over there now. Fantastic centre-back. And then I went with
he played for Bromby for a bit as well, didn't he?
Bromby, yeah. He did, mate. Went over to Scandinavia, didn't he? Played over.
Yeah, he did. Him and Eckers, I think, went over there. Well,
yeah, I've got Adam as my left back because like I say, Adam was a great left back. Adam, great friend, like I say, growing up. I remember him getting a bollocking. I think it was off Alex Ferguson, because I think with the first signing on fee he got, he went and bought a Spitfire car. Remember the Spitfires? The Spitfire. So I mean, my first car was a Vauxhall Tigre. So you can see the difference. He went and bought a Spitfire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but,
Speaking of cars, Lee, just a quick one I always laugh about, and I sometimes just have a chuckle. Do you remember Jousey turning up in his Beetle?
The Beetle.
Yeah.
He had
the worst car you've ever seen, driving down Carrington. All these Ferraris and Porsches are turning up. Jousey's rattling in the flipping Beetle, like a wire-edge Beetle. Falling bits.
So there was a goalkeeper, Keane, called James Joyce. And again, he was a good goalkeeper, fantastic goalkeeper, brilliant goalkeeper. But sometimes when I think his name was John, the busman, who used to pick us up from digs to take John Hart, yeah, God bless him. Obviously he's passed now, God bless him. When James passed his test, he rung me and a few of the boys up. He said, "I've just got my new car. I'll take you to training today." So we didn't know what it was. He wouldn't tell us. It was the oldest, most knackered Beetle you've ever come across in your life. And he had Fast Car Play, you know that You've Got a Fast Car, that song. He had that absolutely blasting all the way. I was like, what's going on? Oh, yeah, what a character. But yeah, Adam Eckersby as my left back. I think I've already mentioned the left wing, a lad called Ben Collett. Ben Collett was my roommate. What an absolute guy Ben Collett were. So shy, so reserved, very quiet. But I have never known a professional footballer give as much dedication and give us, 120% in every single thing he did, mate. I mean, the day of a match, you'd be looking forward to a little bit of a lie-in in the hotel room. I'd be thinking, 9, 10 o'clock, I'll get up, have a shower, go for something to eat. But when you used to room up with Ben, 6 o'clock in the morning, the alarm would go off. He'd be stretching off. He'd be in the shower. Just completely dedicated to the cause. Unfortunately, he broke his leg in the FA. I think it was the FA Youth Cup. Televised on the FA Youth Cup. And the good thing for Ben was, because obviously his hard work and dedication, Alex Ferguson picked up on it. So did Gary Neville and a few more. They went to a lawsuit, and I think he got a £4.2 million payout over it, because they said he would have made a long career out of the game. And I was absolutely made up for Ben, because he deserved it. You know what I mean? If there's one player I've ever come across with the dedication you need for the sport, it would be Ben.
Yeah. Did you ever I used to sometimes after training, I'd go to the gym, or I'd just go for game of table tennis or whatever, and I'd see Ben Collett, and he'd be just doing kick up to the tennis ball.
I remember. Do you not remember?
And he was there for about half an hour. He didn't drop it once. I was like,
do you remember Mike Clegg? The fitness coach, Mike Clegg. You remember Mike?
Yeah, Clegg, yeah.
And he used to have, the light thing, the reaction thing.
The back tap.
And every spare minute Ben had, like I said, we'd be having a game of table tennis, on the texting your girlfriend or whatever, as we used to do as lads. He was on the reaction machine, in the weights, in the gym. He just totally dedicated,
Yeah,
like I said, I'm so glad I'm glad that it paid off for him. It deserved. I know it's a lot of money to say you didn't make it, but if there's one lad I would have wished to have, got something out of the game we didn't actually play at a top level, it would have definitely been Ben.
Yeah.
So that's my on the left. There's two players here in midfield. One is still at United, believe it or not, but he's a coach, Neil Wood. Woody, he was phenomenal. If you remember, Wood, I've never known anyone who could spray your ball around the field like Woody could. He
left peg, wasn't he?
Oh, never seen nothing like it. Ping. Every time we used to hit the ball, it was a ping. It was ping everywhere, every direction. Ping, 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 ping. Phenomenal, mate. And you didn't need to move. It could hit you on a tuppence. It was unreal. So again, I've got Woody in there. Didn't really, I don't think. Did he even make? I don't think he made a first team appearance, did he?
Not sure.
I can remember, but the pedigree he had growing up was phenomenal. And he was the best swimmer you will ever come across in your life. I think he was a better swimmer than he actually was a footballer. When we used to do rehabilitation when we was injured, which obviously I was quite a lot.
I hate the swimming.
Oh, mate.
Get the armbands out for me. I hate it.
Used to get put up against Woody. It was a machine.
There was some proper fish, wasn't there? Like I used to hate me, and they was all like doing like lengths under the water, head out, and all that, and I'm splashing about.
Yeah. I'd done half a length. He'd done 3 lengths by the time I'd done half a length. It was phenomenal. So I've got him in, mate, and I've also got. I don't know if you remember him or if you played with him, Phill. He was a year older than me. David Fox.
Foxy, yeah. Foxy. He was at Blackpool with me actually. I went to Blackpool after United, and he was there. Foxy, yeah.
What a player Foxy was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of people forget about Foxy, but he was a great player. Going on. I think he went to Norwich when he had a good.
He went to Norwich. I think him and Colin Heath were probably the two that stayed. I think they only left United when he was probably like 24, 25.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think they did myself. Yeah.
They was playing in the reserves when I was like coming, and they'd been there for 3 or 4 years before that.
Yeah. They was both a year older than me, and I know they had 2 or 3 years after I'd left. But again, I don't think either one of. Well, I think Foxy might have played a couple of League Cup games, but I don't think Colin did. I can't ever remember Colin playing for first team, and I don't think he did much in the game, did he? I think he after he left United, I don't think he went.
No, I don't think so. No.
But yeah, I've got David Fox in there on the right. I'll not mention too much because we've already mentioned him, Chris Eagles. We've already been there and done that with Chris. Had all the potential in the world and made a good career. And then up front, I've got who my man just mentioned then, Mads Tim, another guy who I lived with for 2 years. Mads, bit of a peculiar one before you got to know him, which I'm sure you'll know, Phill.
Mad character, eh?
He was a character, yeah. But if you remember when he first come over, the hype around Mads was unreal.
He was one of them players, Lee. I remember, obviously, I seen Mads like loads of occasions, but I remember seeing him a few times and think like, wow, he is like literally unplayable. He's like ridiculous. And then the three games later, I'd be like, oh, what's going on here? Like he'd be bang average, and you think, where's the player gone that I seen a couple of weeks ago?
It was so unpredictable, mate. You know what I mean? It was one game, like say, you watch him and you think he's starting for the first team next week. He's definitely in that first team next week. And then
no in between, was there?
Pardon?
There was like no in between with him. It was either unbelievable or bang average.
It was good at sulking, Mads. He had a tendency to sulk a lot. Obviously, I lived with him for me, Mads, Bojan, Ben Yored, another great player. Ben Yored on the right, fantastic. But yeah, Mads had the tendency, I think, to let his head go down a little, and I think his attitude affected him a lot. I don't think it was raw ability. I think it was, his attitude. And then the other I'll just touch on David Phill because he's not on my list, but there was a guy called David Phill, Keane. I don't know if you've heard of David Phill or not. He was another guy who I grew up with probably for 8-9 years at United, consistently scoring great goals. Very, very quick, very strong, and again, another local lad. Lives over in Dubai now. Doesn't play football. I think he might play semi-pro over there, but forged a great career out of, I think he's personal trainer over in Dubai. But great player. But the guy I've got on my list is our very own Phill Marsh. Say a little bit about Marshy now. Phill, I always remember a lad from St Helens, and I didn't know who he was. And I got told there was a striker coming up, a couple of years younger than us, from St Helens, and obviously me being from Wigan and St Helens next to each other, always had a bit of a fascination because I was the only local lad. Well, I say local lad, I was the only lad really. What the locals didn't class me as a local lad.
Yeah, we was more like sort of a local, but not quite.
Yeah. So you kind of fell in between because on a Friday we used to have local guys for South Towners, and we always was on the local team. Well, I was Phill.
Yeah, I was as well.
He was always kind of in between, because obviously Wigan used to be, in St Helens, obviously Merseyside. Wigan used to be classed as Lancashire. Now Wigan's classed as Greater Manchester. But I was always on the peripheral with it, and obviously when you come up, I was like, thank God for that. There's someone in my position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I remember you making your debut. Like I say, I remember you coming in as a young lad making your debut, and I think you trained with us the week before in the reserves, didn't you?
Yeah, I remember my debut. We played Notts Forest away, and I actually played on the right hand side. I remember because I watched the game not so long ago. Just found the video and I watched it back. Well, I actually played against Chris Commons, who's obviously gone on to have a fantastic career at Celtic. I actually played against him on the left. I was on the right.
But I remember you training the week before. I remember you coming in, and it's the first time I watched you play. And you were on my team, and I thought, obviously the young lads, we used to try to rough you up a little bit, but you were strong for your age, and that's the first thing I remember. You could really hold the ball up, and you were so hard to get the ball off. And I remember a few of us thinking at that time, good God, this is a player. This is a lad who could do something. Because like I say, I was probably 19, 18 at the time. So I bet you was probably only 16, 17. You know what I mean?
Probably just turned 17, yeah.
Yeah. You were playing up in the reserves, mate, and you was fantastic. You was a great player, mate. And like I say, if it was going on, the players this team is the team I'm giving now is the team where I would think it's an ability team. The team, not the team what had the most successful career, but the team what could have and more than likely should have. Had the career of the first team I mentioned, you would definitely be in there, mate, 100%.
I'll pay you later. No,
in our private chat there, Phil's have to slip and Lee a 50 for putting them in the team there.
Yeah, definitely. I'll buy you a pint of that, dude.
10.
Guys, I've been sitting back just relaxing, listening to both your teams, and it's just been absolutely fantastic. And just to get both your insights on players you've played with, obviously who've gone to be largely successful in world football, like Johnny Evans, Darren Fletcher, Gerard Piqué, players like that. And then you see obviously your hidden gems that you had in there as well. It's great to get your insight. And one thing I always love is listening to the stories about the Manchester United Youth Academy, because as I always say, you look at all the talent that comes out of Carrington, how it gets nurtured at the Cliff. There's so many great stories, and I feel absolutely privileged to sit here with Jovi and listen to these stories and listen to the players you played with. It's absolutely a great platform to be here and listen to that. So look, absolutely enjoyed tonight's podcast, and great to get both your teams. And look, what we will do for our viewers as well, Wayne will get them teams up. We'll have them up on our Talk of the Devils Twitter page, and also on the website as well. Also, guys, thanks very much to everyone for tuning in tonight. It's been absolutely fantastic show. And look, it's been great conversation about current and past Manchester United. So don't forget, guys, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button below, and Phil as well. Hit the bell notification. We will be back next week with the big one, Manchester Derby. Give you next week, and I am going to get Manchester Derby stories off the lads as well, from their days in the academy as well. So do tune in for that as well. But as always, guys, thanks very much for tuning in to Talking Devils this week, and we'll be back next Friday with another edition of Talking Devils with Phil Marsh and Lee Lawrence. Until then, guys, thanks very much.